God, in these human words which I speak, may there be a word from you, heard in our minds and in our hearts, that we might be made truly alive for your sake. Amen. Please be seated. You know, I got engaged on a mountaintop. Technically, it was a volcano, actually, Haleakala, to be precise, on Maui. Talk about a mountaintop experience, right? On a September morning, the day before I turned 40, and our second day on the island, Mitch and I arose at 2 a.m. to drive the twisty, turny, more than 10,000 feet up the side of this volcano in the pitch black dark in order to sit above the cloud line with a couple hundred other intrepid adventurers who'd all risen before dawn that day. All of us huddled in beach towels and blankets and maybe the one pair of socks and hoodie you bring on a beach vacation, waiting for the sun to break through the clouds from below. It's one of those experiences that just silences you in awe and wonder and appreciation and feeling small in the world in the best possible way. Top that off with an engagement, a mountaintop experience to beat the band. We talk a fair amount, especially in Christian circles, about these mountaintop experiences, right? Sometimes so much that it borders on cliche, maybe. And this moment that we just heard Anne read in today's gospel is, of course, the source of that term and idea. Right? And when we talk about these mountaintop experiences, we are talking about those moments on volcanoes or otherwise when we feel a sense of unity and peace within and around us, right? And connection. When the shape of things, the shape of our lives seems to be clearer and to make more sense. And so also there's this sense of calm and joy and the presence of God in those moments. There's a line in the movie Field of Dreams, which is one that I've seen dozens upon dozens of times, and this is a line that just comes up for me and sticks with me at strange moments maybe, and maybe it's strange that it seems resonant here too. But Kevin Costner's character, Ray Kinsella, is quoting the fictional author Terrence Mann, played by James Earl Jones, to himself. And the quote is this. He says, "There comes a time when all the cosmic tumblers have clicked into place and the universe opens itself up for a few seconds to show you what's possible." Sounds to me like another way to describe these mountaintop experiences. When everything seems to click, to fit together as it should, to make sense so that things are cracked open just enough to see the beauty and the possibility and the profundity of this life. There's times when we can say, here it is. Everything fits and is as it should be. Everything I hoped for seems within reach in this moment. And we pursue these experiences, right? Why wouldn't we? Sometimes by peaceful meditation or quiet retreat, maybe sometimes through adrenaline and adventure or achievement. There are many routes to the figurative mountaintop, right? And we can't help but want to be there, right? We wish we could go from mountaintop to mountaintop and skip those valleys altogether. So we understand Peter's impulse to want to pin this down somehow, right? To hold it and keep it and to make this moment last, to enshrine it so that it might be returned to. And after 2,000 years of reading this story, we know that we're supposed to say, "Silly Peter, you just don't get it, do you?" But I think the truth is that we're with him, generally. We want to hang on to and prolong and preserve these experiences. We don't want to come down from the mountaintop either. Lord, it is good for us to be here, Peter says. If you wish, I'll make 3 dwellings here, one for you, one for Moses, one for Elijah. It's hard to let go, right? When we're given a gift like that, whether a sunrise engagement atop a volcano or, the dazzling God light radiating from Jesus' own face, why would we ever want to move from that spot? We know, after all, that from the pinnacle, the only immediate direction to go is down. Which isn't to say we won't climb back up. We'll reach another mountaintop, but usually not before descending, right? We simply can't hop from one to another. The laws of gravity and humanity and life in the world defy that. And so we should also expect that the view from that next mountaintop will be different, which is another way to say there is no preserving and no recreating these moments, and that's okay, right? They're not meant for that. Those cosmic tumblers click into place for just a few seconds at a time to show us something particular and specific, and we can expect that the next time will look different than the last. These moments are ephemeral, and they're meant to be that way. They're meant to be that way. We can't live there. We have to keep on moving. We have to be ready to see what comes next. And in a way, I feel like that's Jesus' whole point and purpose, right? To help to move us along, to embody and to show us a new way to be and to live, right? These active words, to show us what is next, to point us to God doing a new thing in the world. If we try to stay in the euphoria of this particular mountaintop or that one, we might miss that new thing altogether. And worse, relinquish our spot in the caravan toward the next horizon, the next mountaintop. "This is my son," comes God's voice from the clouds. Listen to him. In other words, this is the way. Here is the guide for your journey toward me and toward your deepest self, deepest joy, deepest liberation. Follow his lead. Do not be afraid. We might hear in this God saying, I am with you always. Mountaintops and valleys, you need not linger here. There's more to be found along the way, and I'll be there too. And so we reluctantly trudge back down the mountain, wistfully looking over our shoulder with Peter, right? Carrying only the feeling with us, hoping to make it last, hoping to internalize it so that we don't forget how close to us God really is, love really is, life really is in those moments when it gets hard to remember, right? Because those moments will come. So we hope that we can carry this light with us into the wilderness. Because of course we know from here where Jesus' own journey leads, right? He's heading to that other mountain, that hill of skulls, Golgotha. We know that. And so suddenly coming along on this journey doesn't seem to be the euphoric trip that it seemed like it might be on the mountaintop, right? But I think there's a reason that we hear this story on the last Sunday before Lent begins. And we are thrust from the mountaintop of Epiphany out into the wilderness of Lent. We can't stay safely on the mountain. Life is to be lived, and it keeps on moving. It has and will always have both mountains and valleys. The journey will always take us up and down and through both. But we can bring the light and the vision from the mountaintop with us. We can bring the sense memory of that liminal space where the universe has opened up and we've glimpsed God's nearness and heard God's voice. We can bring that with us. We can be sustained by the knowledge that it was God we saw on the mountain and God whom we followed back down. And be sustained by the faith that God journeys with us even in those low places, that God has gone there before to light the way to the other side and journeys with us when we go. If you've ever been to Haleakala, you know that once the sun comes completely up, the landscape is harsh and odd and seemingly barren. Black volcanic soil as far as the eye can see, very little vegetation at such a high altitude. And though you can see the ocean from up there, it feels from the summit like worlds and worlds away from those white beaches and the clear water and the palm trees and tropical flowers. Once the glory of that sunrise is over, it looks like the wilderness. And it is, really. And yet, even at that point, looking at all that windswept black soil, the magic and the euphoria, the light of that sunrise, they linger. It's more than enough sustenance to carry us through, because by that point, our vision, even of this wilderness, has been changed by what we saw at the summit. So too, with Peter and James and John. And I think that's the whole purpose of these mountaintop experiences, right? To be filled and to be fed with God's transforming light, and more than that, to have our own vision transformed. Suddenly able to see more clearly God's presence with us. Do you remember those magic eye images that were in like malls and stuff and everywhere in the 90s? These images with these colorful repeating patterns, where if you looked at it just right for long enough, a hidden image would appear. And of course, once you see it, you can't unsee it. It becomes obvious. I think it's a little like that. If we can remember what it felt like to see through the eyes of wonder and awe, through the eyes of faith in God's presence with us, if we can allow our vision to be so transfigured, we can make it through the valleys and the wilderness and the low places. Which is not to pretend that that's an easy thing. It isn't. Not only are those valleys and wilderness spots difficult, learning to see in new ways is one of the most difficult tasks of a transformed life. Old habits die so hard, and selective vision is a stubborn habit. We are dominated by the nagging voices that want us to focus on what's wrong or what could go wrong, where the danger might lie. All of the pitfalls of traveling in the wilderness. But if we can allow our vision to be changed, if we can allow ourselves to be changed by what we've seen on the mountaintop, the world itself can become transfigured before our eyes. The world itself, and we can begin to see before us the miraculous in our everyday. The God in each moment, even the moments that feel like the wilderness. We can learn that we don't need to chase mountaintops or to try to enshrine God's presence on them, because God travels with us. That the God of the mountaintop is also the God of the valley, of the conference room, the street corner, the grocery store, the family squabble. That God of the mountain is also the God of the jailhouse or the year of grief or whatever wilderness we find ourselves in. The God who was present with us at our highest moment remains just as present in our lowest. So the task becomes trusting that there is always love and light and presence enough to sustain us, if only we have eyes to see it. If only we can allow our vision to become transformed and transfigured by those moments when the cosmic tumblers click into place and we glimpse a sliver of the divine before and all around us. Do not be afraid, Jesus says to his friends with a loving touch. I am with you. Amen.